Hello and welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora. Now, a few weeks ago, I did my top 10 favorite cryptids, and I had someone ask me, like, what about UFOs? Are you into the UFO, ufology, and aliens and all that? And I have to say, growing up, I loved UFOs. I still do. I love UFOs and all that. But the thing I have issues is that I don't know a whole lot about them, but I do have some favorite ones. So I was thinking back after I was asked this, I was thinking back of the ones that I really like, and the ones I really like are the ones that are older, like pre drones, like because in the 80s and 90s, drone technology was being tested. So there's a lot of those where I'm like, man, I wonder if that was a drone because the way they describe them moving is just how drones do now, especially like the ones where people are like, yeah, we saw UFOs around Area 51. Well, they were testing a lot of aircraft and different things there that, you know, now we see that, you can go buy a drone at Walmart that moves in the same way that these UFOs were described. So I thought I'd share some of the ones that I really like that are really hard to explain. One of the oldest UFO, uh, and there's some that are even older, but this is an older one that took place in 1561, and it was in Nuremberg, Germany. Now, what the people in Nuremberg claimed was that they saw an aerial battle between two craft, and it started at about 4 a.m. and it lasted a little over an hour. Now, some people try to say that it was sundogs, but in doing a little research, doing a little, Googling when was sunrise, Nuremberg, Germany, on the date that this happened in 1561, the sunrise didn't occur till past 6 a.m. So whatever this was, you can't claim that was sundogs because it would be lower in the sky. They were saying it was directly above the city. So if you don't know what sundogs are, it's an astronomical phenomenon of the sun, and you see things around the sun moving. But so yeah, that one for me was interesting. Like, what were they seeing? If you say it was a meteor shower, they were claiming it was just two things that were going back and forth for an hour. And if it was a meteor shower, I think it would have been very quick and gone. Um, so that's one that I've always thought was pretty fascinating. Another is the oldest recorded UFO occurrence in the United States, and that happened on March 1st, 1639. And the governor of Massachusetts at the time was John Winthrop, and he wrote about it. And basically, what he said was, I'm going to read part of what he said, was that earlier in the year, like in 1639, a man named James Everell, which is great, he describes him as a sober, discreet man. So basically, saying he's not a drunkard. He was out fishing on this place called Muddy River, and that it goes into the Charles River, and he saw this light, and it moved, and then it stood completely still and flamed up like, and then it like he described it as being about uh 12 to 14 feet long, and then it just took off and changed shape, and it was moving quickly like an arrow. He described it as being swift as an arrow. And he and his friend, he had a friend with him, and they didn't say who the friend was. Maybe that person didn't want to be known for this. Watched it for 2 to about 3 hours, and then it moved towards Charlestown, and then it like just disappeared into the darkness. It just was gone. Um, the they just said it was gone, and these were Puritan people that so they didn't lie. Well, maybe they did, but still, it was one of those. And I love the fact that he describes this guy as a sober man. Uh, the thing is, that wasn't the only time. Then again, Governor Winthrop talked about in January 18th, 1644, they saw the similar light over Boston, and it was now more than one. It appeared to be having two lights doing very similar things, moving swiftly and then vanishing. And it was pretty interesting that, this was, you know, the governor of the area described this. Now, from 1896 to 1897, in the Western United States, there were numerous claims of witnesses seeing these cigar-shaped craft, and they were seen flying across the sky at extraordinary speeds. And this was before airplanes. So you had these things happening, and there's actually roughly about 1,500 newspaper articles in that year span that reported on the sighting. Some of them, obviously they were repeats, but still 1,500 newspaper articles describing these cigar-shaped uh, vehicles from space or in the air. What, are they alien? We don't know. We don't know what they are. But people saw these things and they were not sure what they were. And the thing you got to think with all of these, back Nuremberg through, the early Americans and even the West, they didn't have the light pollution we have now. So they saw the skies way better than we do, especially if you live in a town or a city. Like if you go out into the country or out west still, you can see the magnificence of the sky and you'll be your mind will be blown, be like, holy cow, how I had no idea there are this many stars. So these people were aware of the stars, they were aware of comets, they were aware of meteors, they knew what those were, because they saw them on the regular. It's not like, I go to the beach now and I get to see a shooting star and I'm like, oh wow, I saw a shooting star. Well, they got to see them all the time just walking out their front yard because they didn't have the lights and everything we have now. So them confusing it with that, I don't believe they were confusing them with meteors. Now, one of the most famous cigar-shaped vehicles in the sky in that 1896 to 1897 time period took place on April 17th, 1897, in Aurora, Texas. Now, this is a kind of famous one. What happened was newspapers reported on it. This thing, whatever it was, crashed in Aurora, Texas, and it resulted in the death. It resulted in the death of the pilot of this craft. They found the body and parts of it. And the story is that they took the body and it didn't look like a human, but they buried the body in the Aurora Cemetery. And an article by a guy named S.E. Hayden was published in the Dallas Morning Star on April 19th of 1897, and describing the whole incident. They buried it, and if you actually go to Aurora, Texas, there's a plaque posted outside the Aurora Cemetery, and it mentions the UFO incident, and they call it the legend of Aurora. They call it, the Aurora UFO legend. But supposedly they took part of the craft and the alien and buried it. They said they took the rest of the craft and kind of threw it down in this well on this property. I think it belonged to a judge. But I thought that was another interesting because they buried the guy, alien. And at one point, the grave was marked, but people had desecrated it, so the stone was removed. So now it's an unmarked grave in the cemetery. And so to me, that is a pretty cool story, pretty cool legend to have going on. Another one of my favorites, and I've talked about this before. If you watch my YouTube channel, I did a fast fact about this one. It's called the Battle of Los Angeles, and it took place on February 25th in 1942. And it is in the middle of, World War II. We were fighting the Japanese. Well, in the middle of the night, it started around midnight, 1, 2 a.m. The air raid sirens were set off. and they're like, woo, woo, and like they shut the lights out of LA, and then they had like searchlights in the air, and people were freaking out. Well, the military shot over 1,400 artillery shells into the sky. They're just like bam, 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 bam over this 2 hour period, basically, is 1 to 2 hour period. And but they don't know what they're firing at. Now they have no idea what set off the air raid. They did not. Uh, but in 1983, years later, the Air Force said it was a weather balloon that had gotten blown off course, set off things. And my question though is like, well, we recently had the Chinese balloons, and like, but we knew it was a balloon. But my mind is in 1940, you see a weather balloon, and they're not fast moving; they're slowly going. They're like, would it really take 1,400 artillery rounds to shoot down a weather balloon? That's like one guy with a shotgun could shoot down a weather balloon. Like it's just going like they're not fast. You just aim one artillery shell, you nail it. But 1,400 and it was a weather balloon. I I I just don't believe it. Maybe it was Japanese forces, maybe, but they never whatever they were shooting at, they never shot it down. Like there's no wreckage. And you would think back in the 40s, if it was a weather balloon, they would be like, here, we found it. But they never showed what they shot down. There was no, and you'd think they'd want to calm everybody down and be like, hey, guess what, guys? It was not a big deal. Calm down, just a weather balloon. But no, they didn't do that. Or if it even was the Japanese, they'd be like, hey, you know what? We shot, Japanese aircraft. You're safe. You're good. Everything worked well. But they didn't do that either. They were just like, we don't know. And then in the 80s, they decide it was a weather balloon. Calm down. Well, by that time, nobody cared. Nobody even talks about this very much. It's kind of like a forgotten day. And I personally, I think it's a fascinating day, and I wish people would, celebrate it more and talk about it. Kind of, it was the premise for 1942, which is one of Spielberg's movies, which is a hilarious movie. You haven't seen it. Um, they talk about Japan trying to raid the United States, and that's part of the story. It's a comedy. It's really well done, but it's one of those where it wouldn't be made today. It's just just a little too much. But if you get a chance, find it, watch it. Good movie. Now, we then have to go into the Roswell incident of July 8th, 1947. And the reason we do this is like one of the most famous ones. People always talk about Roswell. And what happened was, if you don't know, but I'm pretty sure you have to know, was this thing crashed at the Roswell Army Airfield. Okay. Now, the interesting thing was on July 8th, 1947, the Army actually put it out that they had discovered a flying disc that had crashed. The Army said this. They put it out. Well, they retracted that statement a couple days later and said, oh, no, it wasn't that. It was just a weather balloon. After we looked at it, it was a weather balloon. Well, my question on this, and a lot of people ask this, is like, why did the Army first say it was a disc and then change it to it was a weather balloon? Like, how did they not know it was a weather balloon? How did they not? They're in the military. They got to know. Why would they do it and then retract it? And the other thing was the wreckage was transported to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. Now, that's another interesting thing. If it was just a weather balloon, why didn't they keep it at the Roswell Army Airfield? Why didn't they take it to a closer place? Why Wright-Patterson? Now, if you know anything about Wright-Patterson, before Area 51, Wright-Patterson was the place they were testing things. That Wright-Patterson was more of a top, they had top secret things going on there. They still do to some extent, but it was a highly fortified Air Force base. They had things going on, and it was protected. So whatever they had, It was things they didn't want to get out. And again, the weather balloon thing is you know what a weather balloon is. Like they would know it was a weather balloon. Why would they say one thing, then another, retract it? And why would they take weather balloon wreckage to Wright Patterson? Wright Patterson wasn't even in the business of experimenting with weather balloons at that time. I don't think they ever have been. They were experimenting with experimental aircraft, saying a lot of experimentation. But, it wasn't the place you would take a weather balloon. There's other places. And again, like it happened at the Army Airfield base of Roswell. They could have easily just kept it there. Like, they didn't have to move it. But there's all kinds of documentation showing they moved the wreckage. And in the documentation, if you do some research, you see that they don't say a air balloon. It just says wreckage, parts, this, that. You would think it would be clear. Hey, it was a weather balloon. But no, it wasn't. Now, the last story I want to talk about with UFOs is I have a personal story, and I don't know what it was. I can't tell you, but a few years ago, like over 10, my wife and I were in St. Augustine, Florida. We still live there, but we were visiting with my parents. We were in their backyard, and they lived out on Volano Beach. And she and I were just sitting in the hammock looking up at the stars, and we saw these two really bright stars. And if you take your fingers, your forefinger and your pointer finger, and just spread them apart as far as you can, which is roughly 3 inches for me. So it was these two stars, if you looked up, looked like they were 3 inches apart, which would probably be hundreds of billions of miles, you know, trillions, whatever, light years apart if they were stars. Were there and directly, and we were like, oh man, those are bright. Wonder if that's, we're thinking, oh, is that Jupiter or is that Venus? And as we we're looking at them, suddenly they started to move very quickly. Like it wasn't just, it's coming from the south and moving north. And so, which is another thing because the earth rotates from, the east to west. Like, so you would think it would be going, you'd see it in the east and moving, or see it in the west, yeah, east and moving westward from the rotation. But it wasn't. It was moving like, and it moved, and then they stopped again, and then boom, they were just gone, just vanished, like just turned off. Whatever it was, just went away. And we were both like, "What the heck was that?" Now, a I think may have been a month later, we were watching. I love the show Destination Truth. I love that with Josh Gates. Shout out to Josh Gates. I think he's phenomenal. But we watch Destination Truth. We also, watch Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates now, as well as the Explorer Club show, and Late Night with Josh Gates. We watch. I'm a big fan of Josh Gates. Anyway, but he was doing a show, and they were in Russia, I believe, and they were out in the wilderness, and they were filming, and they saw the identical thing. It was two bright looking stars. They watch it, and they're like, "What is that?" And again, they made the same comment about, "Oh, maybe it's Jupiter and Venus," and then the things moved, and it was in the same kind of thing, like from the south and moved northward and then vanished. And I was like, holy crap, that's the exact same thing we saw. And they had no idea what it was. We had no idea what it was. It was just that one of those really cool phenomenons that I got to experience with my wife. And we both, like we talked about, we're both like, that was a really cool thing to be a part of and see together. Um, so what's out there? I don't know. I mean, the universe is vast. Is it aliens? Is it? There's so many theories. People say it's aliens. People say it's time travelers. Some people say it's demonic. So I don't know. I don't know what it is because I've never really interacted with these things other than seeing it. And those are some of my favorite. There are a few others out there. Again, I really like the older stories, uh, just the ones predating actual aircraft, because a lot of the ones we have now, you can kind of like, well, is this or that, is a plane this, and these older ones, it's kind of harder to do that with because you're just like, what was that? What is it? Um, and again, like I said, they didn't have the air pollution, so they would see things in the skies way better than we do now, and they interacted with them and they knew them. So what about you? What do you guys believe in UFOs? Have you ever seen something that you couldn't explain? Have you ever thought about it? Do you have a favorite UFO story? Is there a UFO story you would like me to do some research on? Maybe get Chip Stetson involved that we can look at it. I would be interested to see Chip's take on it. Like, is he a UFO kind of guy, or is he fall into the category that he thinks they're demonic? I don't know. I haven't asked him about UFOs. I know he's fascinated by them, but I haven't really delve deep into what his theories are. But please tell me what you think. Again, go check out my YouTube channel. It is YouTube and then backslash at the Fedora Files. Or if you type in the Fedora Files on YouTube or Fedora CRT on YouTube, you'll find it, and you'll find the channel. And check them out. I do shorts. I do every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I do Happy Little Monster. Every day I do a fast fact. And on Wednesday, we do Wednesday Race, where we tell you a ghost story. So check those out, as well as you can see all the previous podcasts on there. If you enjoy a visual take on the podcast movement, come check us out. Again, thank you for stopping by, either listening or watching, however you found me. I appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe and keep searching.
Check out FedoraCRT.com today.